After 4 years of paying off my stepdad's medical debt, he sold the house my mom left me without telling me. When I asked why, he said, "I was sick." "You were just paying your dues." I stood there holding my childhood photos in a garbage bag while he lit a cigar with my last paycheck stub. That night, I drove to where the sale was filed in. 4 years. That's how long I paid off my stepdad's medical debt. 4 years of struggling just to keep him afloat. And this is how it ended. I'm from Mobile, Alabama. Born and raised. My mom worked as a nurse for most of her life. Single mom after my dad left when I was 10. She worked hard. Never took handouts. That woman kept a roof over our heads, packed me lunches every single day, and still managed to smile through it all. When I was in college, she met Hank. He was a trucker, 10 years older than her, with a loud laugh and fake charm. I never liked him, but I didn't fight it. She was happy. That's what mattered. After she passed suddenly from a heart attack, everything changed. The funeral was small. Quiet. She didn't want anything fancy. That house, the one we lived in since I was a kid, was supposed to go to me. I saw the will. Clear as day. She left it in my name. Then Hank had a stroke about 4 months later. He had nothing saved. He'd never bothered with health insurance. He couldn't work, couldn't take care of himself. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe guilt. Maybe I thought helping him would be what my mom wanted. So I did it. I paid for the hospital bills. The rehab. Bought his medicine. Paid his overdue water and electric bills. Grocery runs. Cleaned up the house when he couldn't. I did all that. I worked double shifts at the mechanic shop, took odd jobs on weekends, gave up every small comfort I had. I didn't do it out of love. I didn't even like the man. But I felt like I owed it to her memory. This went on for 4 damn years. Then one day, I stopped by the house to cut the grass like I usually did. Only this time, something was different. The "for sale" sign that had been there the week before. Gone. A strange red truck in the driveway. The curtains were new. Windows open. I walked in the front door without knocking. I still had a key. Inside, a woman I'd never seen before was unpacking dishes. She looked at me like I had 3 heads. "Can I help you?" she asked, like I was the intruder. I said, "This is my mother's house." She paused, blinked, then said, "We just bought this place last week." My stomach dropped. I didn't even know what to say. I walked out the back, where Hank was sitting on the porch like nothing had happened. He had a glass of whiskey in one hand and a cigar in the other. I said, "What the hell is going on?" He looked at me, smirked, and said, "I sold the house." Just like that. I asked him how. I told him the house was in my name. He blew out smoke and pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. My last paycheck stub, the one I had given him to cover his pharmacy bill the week before. He used it to light another cigar. "I was sick," he said. "You were just paying your dues." That was all he said. I stood there, holding a garbage bag with old family photos, a couple of my childhood drawings, a box labeled "Mark's Room," that the new owners were kind enough to leave outside. That was all I had left. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't punch him, even though I wanted to. I just turned around and walked to my car. I drove straight to the Mobile County Records office. I needed to see it for myself. Maybe it was some kind of mistake. Maybe he forged my name. But no. The sale was legal. The house was under his name. I told the clerk that couldn't be right. I was the heir. My mother left it to me. The clerk pulled up the will. I stared at the screen like I was staring at a ghost. It had been changed. 2 years ago. While Hank was already on disability. This version said everything, the house, the land, all of it, was left to Hank. It had a typed signature, no lawyer stamp, no witness. I knew my mom's handwriting. That wasn't it. I took a picture of the will with my phone. Then I drove back to my apartment in Pritchard, locked the door, and just sat there. Everything I had given. Every hour of overtime, every paycheck I handed him, every bit of hope I had that maybe doing the right thing would pay off in the end, it all burned. Just like that cigar. That night, I didn't sleep. I started going through my old files, old voicemails from my mom, old documents. I compared signatures. Looked up local probate lawyers. Found out exactly what steps I'd need to challenge a forged will. And while I was reading, something in me shifted. I wasn't just going to fight this. I was going to make sure he lost everything. And I knew exactly where to start. I started digging. First thing I needed was proof. Real proof. A gut feeling wouldn't hold up in court. So I went back through every document I had. The original will, I still had a copy. It was signed, notarized, dated. It had a witness, too. My mom's best friend, Sharon. I hadn't talked to her in years, but I called her up that morning. She picked up right away. When I told her what happened, she went quiet. Then she said, "Mark, that's not the will I signed. Your mom never would have left him that house. She told me if anything ever happened to her, it was yours." Bingo. I asked if she could write a statement, maybe even talk to a lawyer. She didn't even hesitate. Said she'd be there for whatever I needed. Next, I pulled out old birthday cards from my mom, notes she'd left me in lunchboxes, even the letter she left me when I graduated college. I matched her handwriting with the signature on the original will. Then I compared it to the forged one. It wasn't even close. But here's where it got worse. When I talked to a probate attorney in downtown Mobile, he said something that froze me. "Are you sure you never signed over your rights?" I said no. Never. He said, "Because if you didn't contest the new will within the first year after it was filed, it's going to be harder. You can still go after him for fraud, maybe even elder abuse if you can prove he forged it. But it'll take time. Money. And the house is already sold." I felt like I'd been punched. But I didn't give up. I started calling around. Found the notary who signed the updated will. Except, here's the twist, when I called her, she said she never notarized anything for Hank. She had no record of the signature, no entry in her ledger. She sounded nervous when I mentioned his name. I thanked her and hung up. Wrote her name down. That night, I drove past the old house again. The porch light was on. The swing was gone. The new owners had ripped out the rose bush my mom planted 20 years ago. And Hank? He wasn't there. I found out later he'd taken the money from the sale and moved into a condo in Orange Beach. He was living in a place with ocean views and valet parking, while I was eating ramen in a one-bedroom apartment with broken AC. I knew what I had to do. I went to the police and filed a report for fraud. Brought every document I had. The real will. The fake one. The notary's name. Sharon's statement. My own sworn affidavit. The officer looked over everything and said, "You might have something here. You willing to testify?" I said, "I've got nothing left to lose." But Hank wasn't done screwing me over. A few days after I filed the report, I came out to my car and found all 4 tires slashed. No note. No camera. Just a slow leak of fury building up in my chest. That's when I realized, this wasn't just about the house. Hank knew what I was doing. And he was trying to scare me off. But all it did was pour gasoline on the fire. I started reaching out to people he used to work with. Old friends. Even a few women he dated before my mom. And what I found out next made everything worse. One of the first people I tracked down was Roy, an old trucking buddy of Hank's. He met me in a Denny's parking lot just outside Saraland. Told me to come alone. He lit a cigarette with shaky hands and said, "I never liked your stepdad. Always cutting corners, running scams. But what he did to your mom, that was different." I asked him what he meant. I figured he was just talking about the will. But no. Roy leaned in and said, "Did you know Hank had another family? Out in Pensacola. A girlfriend and a kid. For years. Even while he was married to your mom." I just stared at him. "You think those long hauls were all work?" he added. "Hell, half the time he was down there, playing house with his side piece. Bought her a car once. With your mom's money." I couldn't believe it. Or maybe I could. I always felt like Hank was a liar, but this was another level. I asked if he had proof. Roy said, "I can get you her name. Got pictures too." He showed me once like it was some kind of joke. Next day, he sent me a photo of Hank standing next to a woman I'd never seen before. Blonde, about my mom's age. And next to them was a boy, maybe 10 or 11. Looked just like Hank. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a whole secret life. My mom died thinking she had a husband. She didn't. She had a parasite. I passed that info to my lawyer. He said it could help paint a picture of fraud and manipulation. If Hank had lied to my mom, cheated, used her money for another woman, that might help prove his motive for forging the will. But I didn't stop there. I dug through my mom's old bank records. Got copies from her credit union. Found charges from stores in Pensacola that made no sense. Jewelry shops. A furniture outlet. Spa services. All paid for during Hank's trucking trips. I sent that, too. Meanwhile, the police followed up with the notary. She confessed. Said Hank had paid her $500 cash to stamp the forged will. Said she knew it was wrong, but he told her I wouldn't care. I got a call from the detective working the case. He told me they were opening a criminal investigation into Hank for fraud and forgery. And that's when things really started heating up. Because 2 days later, someone broke into my apartment. Didn't steal anything. Just trashed it. Ripped open drawers, flipped the mattress, dumped coffee all over my laptop. I knew who did it. I went straight to the cops. Filed another report. Showed them everything. They said they didn't have enough to charge Hank directly for the break-in, but they'd add it to the record. I had to stay with a friend for a while after that. But then something happened I didn't expect. One of the new owners of my old house, a woman named Maria, called me. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said. "But we were going through some of the attic stuff, and we found something that looks important. A bunch of letters. Some with your name on them. I drove there the same day." She handed me a shoebox. Inside were letters from my mom. Dozens. Old, yellowing, sealed. Some were addressed to me. Some weren't. One was to my lawyer, "If anything ever happens to me." I froze. I opened it right there, hands shaking. It was a handwritten letter. Dated 6 months before she died. It said, "If this ever reaches you, I need to be clear, my husband Hank is not to receive my house. I've updated my will with my lawyer, but I fear he might try something if he finds out. Please protect my son, Mark. That house is for him." I stared at the letter for a long time. It was signed in ink. Her handwriting. Her words. She knew. She knew Hank was a snake. And I had just found the smoking gun. I brought the letter straight to my lawyer the next morning. He didn't even let me finish reading it out loud. "This is it," he said. "This is the nail in his coffin." He had it authenticated, matched the handwriting to her old letters, and submitted it with the rest of the evidence. The forged will. The notary's confession. The photos. The bank statements. Everything. We didn't wait for court. The DA filed criminal charges, fraud, forgery, and tampering with a legal document. They even added elder abuse and theft, since Hank had used my mom's money behind her back for years. The cops picked him up in his fancy condo in Orange Beach. I got a call from the arresting officer. He didn't even act surprised, he said. Just sighed and asked if he could finish his drink. When it finally went to court, I sat on that witness stand for 2 days. Told the whole story. Showed every receipt. Every sacrifice. Every broken promise. Hank sat across from me, hands folded, smug like he still thought none of it would stick. But when they brought out my mom's letter, when the handwriting expert pointed to the signatures and explained the forgery, his face changed. He started to sweat. His lawyer tried to object, but it was over. The judge ruled in my favor. Not just on the criminal case. The sale of the house was declared invalid. Fraud voided the deal. The new owners were refunded by the title insurance company, and I was legally restored as the owner. I offered to let them rent until they found a new place. They agreed. Hank was sentenced to 3 years in prison. And here's the thing. I visited him once. Just once. He looked smaller in that orange jumpsuit. Older. Tired. I didn't go to gloat. I went to tell him something. You tried to erase my mom. Tried to erase me. But now everyone knows what you did. And when you get out, you won't have $1 or a door left to your name. That's justice. He looked at me, eyes red, and whispered, she was gonna leave me anyway. That broke something in me. Not pity. Just the final confirmation that he was always going to be this way. I turned and walked out. A week later, I stood on the porch of my mom's house. The swing was gone, but I brought it back. Painted it the same blue we picked years ago. I sat on it for a long time, looking at the yard she loved. And I thought about every mistake I made. I shouldn't have waited so long. Shouldn't have trusted him. Should have fought back sooner. But I also knew this, I didn't let it end there. I fought. And I won. And now, that house is mine again. But more importantly, her memory is clean. Her name is clear. And Hank? He'll spend the rest of his life knowing he lost everything because he messed with the wrong son.